How you like them apples? We'll be talking about that. The largest prominence of the entire solar cycle here. Huge prominence there coming out of the North Polar region of the closest star here. Whew. That and lots more on today's Daily Space Weather. We streamed that yesterday live on the Twitch channel. We tweeted about it, which means that at least 1.3 people actually saw it. We've got some fantastic imagery of that for you. There's the SDO 304 angstroms. That's the last 24 hours. And whoops, major prominence. We've also got 2 massive sunspots rising. Most of the activity is in the northern hemisphere at the moment. That is also the last 24 hours. And check out these huge sunspots that are rising in the northeast. Likelihood of large flares goes way up, and the largest flare we've seen in the past 24 was indeed from this region. Right at the end of this video, you'll see this brighten up. That was a large C-class flare. We also do have a new active region perhaps rising in the southern hemisphere there in the southeast. Also this huge filament. Looks like it may have just reoriented itself. I don't think it released. I think it collapsed back down toward the chromosphere. Kind of the way Fauci's credibility has been collapsing back down. Conveniently, we named it yesterday Fauci's filament. Here's a colorized magnetogram from yesterday plus today. Look at these huge magnetic regions rising in the northeast. Those sunspots are each larger than planet Earth. Again, that's yesterday plus today, and when we zoom in, those be some big sunspots. Let's take a look at volcanoes briefly here. What's erupting, you ask? Well, Abico's erupting. And good morning, Tin Man 1057. Abico's erupting, producing an 8,000-foot ash plume. Subanosei-jima's exploding, producing a 5,000-foot ash plume. Popocatépetl in central Mexico exploding. Flight level 210, 21,000-foot ash plume, down to Guatemala for Fuego exploding. Flight level 150 at Fuego, 15,000-foot ash plume. Don't pole vault the caldera. Sangay exploding in Ecuador for a flight level 210. Revenador also exploding in Ecuador for a flight level 150, and Sabancaya, 24,000-foot ash plume as it explodes in Peru. It's a 24,000-foot ash plume. Next, looking at earthquakes. No major quakes over the past 24, but quite a few quakes. Mainly around the Pacific Rim. I think the largest was a 5.7 in El Salvador. Let's scroll up the list here. Let us know if we've missed anything. So we've got the Band AC had a 5.3. The Reykjanes Ridge has had a 5.4. The Southern Mid-Atlantic Ridge had a 5.0. Some quakes in Texas there. Tobelo, Indonesia had a 5.0. And there's the largest quake of the past 24, the 5.7 at El Salvador that came in early this morning at 4:26 Universal Time. Some aftershocks happening there as well. Also, Fiji had a 5.1. And let's move on back to space. So we do have a number of CMEs here. We'll talk about their trajectory a little bit later in the video. That's the last 24 hours. Great imagery there of Venus and Mercury. A great indication there. You can see Mercury at the higher speed as it retrogrades. Of course, we're bringing you the most detailed imagery of the sun you'll see any place in the world on our daily space weather videos. Also the most comprehensive space weather videos, chock full of facts and zero fraud, zero nonsense, zero propaganda. That's the last 24 hours in 171 angstroms. And let's add 335 angstroms, which is a great composite wavelength, 171 plus 335, Great at showing active regions as well as filaments. And check it out, Fauci's filament collapsing and appearing to not eject. Likelihood of additional coronal mass ejection still very high. The radial flux has come down a little bit since yesterday. Expect it to go up big time, as we've got some big-time sunspots in the northern hemisphere. Current radial flux is 125 solar flux units. There is the 1-year graph to put it in context, and you can expect a big uptick here with these new sunspots. So Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard here, forecasting. They changed the forecast a little bit there for early in the day tomorrow on November 5th. And we'll see what happens. Possibly some aurora visible at mid-latitudes. We'll see what goes on. We are expecting an additional density wave here, so don't be surprised to see a little bit of additional activity there in the solar wind data. We'll be keeping an eye on it. And when I say ion, well, pardon the pun. All right, let's move on here to take a look at the last 4 hours of Earth's geomagnetic moment from space. We've got a fairly high pressure environment. We've got a fairly high speed solar wind at the moment. That is showing you magnetohydrodynamic pressure based on the space weather modeling framework. You want to read about that, go to the Geospace Magnetosphere Movies page, scroll down and click on details. It'll link you to the space weather modeling framework and all the data used for it. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. This will show you the most likely places to see aurorae. Also, electrical grid induction, railroad line grid induction, pipeline induction. The last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground, modeled in nanotesla magnetic flux density. KP index here at about 3.33. We did see a brief period of minor geomagnetic storm conditions, which calmed down into geomagnetic unrest rather quickly. Again, we are expecting an additional wave here. I want to see an increase in the solar wind density, followed by a decrease and then an increase in the solar wind speed. For the latest coronal hole wind stream shows up in earnest. So here's what we see at the moment. Again, elevated solar wind speed. We see the BZ dropping here in the top pane. Magnetic field not super strong. We've got a 6 for the BT, that's the total field. The BZ, the vertical component, at -6. Solar wind density just under 11 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed 561 kilometers per second. And let's continue on to some magnetic data. There are the GOES magnetometers for the GOES 16 and GOES 17. These spiky readings here are consistent with coronal hole high-speed streams. We've certainly got one. We are expecting, again, another density wave, which will affect the GOES magnetometers. Next, the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And are we seeing the South Pole current sheet here yet? I believe the Earth is just crossing into it now. So if we look at the last frame here, Earth potential field surface source line here just barely in the North Pole current sheet. I believe it may have already crossed over. Keep in mind this data is over an hour old when we streamed the video. Next, the line of sight field plot. The Sun's B field shown here in blue. South solar polar field in red, North solar polar field in green. Also the solar magnetogram there. And let's move to coronal holes. A very important feature of solar cycle progression. As the magnetic fields reverse, we've got some North Pole magnetism way down south and some South Pole magnetism way up north. There's a long way to go to complete this solar cycle, by the way, as we still see a large portion of the North Solar Polar Field hanging out at the North Heliographic Pole. Let's take a look at the view from 211 angstroms SDO. And these are indeed, I'm not sure. I think this is actually a North Pole coronal hole down here. We've got some South Pole coronal holes showing up here. They're not so visible with the amount of plasma we have suspended. We should expect to see those get more defined in the next couple of days. And let's move to sunspots. We're going to have at least 2 more named groups. 2 huge sunspots have just risen in the northeast. Those will be known as 3140 and 3141. 3141, I believe, is the most flare-producing region at the moment. And as sunspots are right near the limb, that's the most likely place to see them produce major flares. Here's the SDO continuum imagery for the last 24 hours. And let's zoom in one step. So most of those sunspots appearing pretty stable here over the past 24 hours. And let's move on to energetic particles. No spikes in the proton flux. And no major flares. We'll get to it. First, take a moment to press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Tell your friends and foes about the channel. We don't believe YouTube promotes the channel, so how about if you promote the channel? Yeah, press like, press subscribe, share, comment, etc. Our Hemp Lucid products review, stagnant at 50 views. Check our playlist for videos that don't relate to space weather. Give Smash staff a raise by watching some of our playlists. Thanks to everybody who's tolerated the pathetic censorship on the platform for the past 5+ years as we make the most detailed space weather video and most detailed imagery of the sun you'll find anywhere in the world. There's an example. Follow us on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter account, create one as we stagnate at 340 followers on Twitter. As we see a bunch of political nonsense. You'll find our links there as well, pinned to twitter.com/smashamash. One of the tweets you'll find there is a link to SureMed. SureMed is not insurance. It's a nonprofit organization. It's an association membership known as the American Better Health Organization, which is focused on improving your health. The base membership alone allows you access to purchase group insurance with no underwriting. You will have access to doctors by phone, counselors by phone, virtual veterinarians, huge dental discounts, vision discounts, retail and mail-order pharmacy discounts, discounts on diabetic supplies, MRI and CT scans, labs, hearing aids, durable medical equipment, and lots more. Check it out. The links are below the video as well as on our homepage at smashamash.com. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Despite the putrid, disgusting, and sickening censorship on the internet is not what it used to be, folks, as big tech tries to destroy it and instead destroys themselves. Check their share prices for details. Smashamash.com. Our links are available right there. Support the channel via using our Hemp Lucid shop. The Black Friday sale has already begun. Save 40% store-wide via our link. Links below the video and again on the home page. Links are all over the place to our Hemp Lucid shop. There are the most popular items. And if you want to support the channel via subscription membership, become a member of the Smash team. The best value is the Gold annual paid-up subscription level. You'll get complimentary merch. It's equivalent to getting about 4 free months of Gold membership level. So check it out. Become a Silver member if you like. Smashamash.com/SmashTeam. We send out disaster alerts. You can find our links. Smashamash.com/SmashTeam. Today's featured product is the Smash Team because in 2019, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade to the internet underground where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash Team. Now, I guarantee you can hire the Smash Team. You can probably view the videos. They make great gifts. Tell your friends and foes about the Smash Team. Thanks to our executive producers, our Gold and Silver Smash Team members. There's even a bronze level. And I'm actually wearing the product right now. This is the complimentary merch only available to Gold annual paid-up subscriptions. smashomash.com/smashteam. If you visit the links to our merch shop below the video or on our homepage, you will find our merch in order of best selling. It, of course, features products that are and aren't controversial. It may or may not have anything to do with our political views. However, I am basically apolitical, never associated with a political party, probably never will be, because they are just not nuanced enough to cater to my stance on things. So check out the merch. We've got some surprises coming, by the way. Again, you can find links below the video and on the homepage. So check them out. The print quality is indeed top-notch. Getting back to space, here is the GOES X-ray flux. And the largest flare came in just a couple of hours ago here. Peak flux was at 740. It was a C5.6 class flare. And here's one of the best wavelengths to view solar flares. It came from up here. That'll be Sunspot 3141. Don't be surprised to see an M or even an X-class flare. We'll talk about the classification of those sunspots a little bit later in the video. Moving right along here to a star chart, this is what's going on above our head. If you're up before dawn, you may see Mars, not too far from Betelgeuse, Orion's shoulder, right there. The blue line is the galactic plane. The yellow line is the ecliptic. Two bright red objects up there high in the sky over Lehigh Valley. Next, the solar system forecast as we approach a full moon. This is where things will be in 1 week. We will have a gibbous waning on 11/11 as Mercury and Venus swing around to approach their prograde motion. Let's take a look at some coronagraphs. There's 25 frames from George Mason University. And unfortunately, we don't have that much data from Stereo A. I do not believe we have any Earth-directed coronal mass ejections. Here's a view from Stereo A and from Soho-Lascaux C3 at Lagrange 1. So we did have a significant CME late yesterday afternoon. Of course, we streamed it on Twitch, twitch.tv/smashomash. That's how we started the video out. And no indication that that CME is earthly directed. Let's take a look at some 24-hour videos. There is the last 24 hours from SDO 304 angstroms plus the Soho-Lascaux C2 and C3. Fantastic imagery there. Looks like Fauci's filament did actually produce a little bit of a CME. Most of it collapsed back down toward the chromosphere. Here's a zoomed out view. Again, a great picture there of Mercury on the right, Venus on the left. Some CMEs happening, lots of stuff going on. And it's time for bonus features. Actually, first, how about some filaments? Massive number of filaments here on the earthly facing portion of the solar disk. Look at all these dark regions. Yowzers. Crazy number of filaments. Likelihood of additional CMEs nearly 100%. So it's a CME fest. It's going to continue. We may see aurora over the weekend. It's exciting times for space weather. And let's move on to the GOES 16 SUVI. So here are the last about 2.5 hours. And here's the last 24 hours from SDO 304 angstroms. Here come bonus features. Starting with the satellite's community dashboard. We see some charging hazards here. Some internal charging caused by high-energy electrons over Oceania, the southern Indian Ocean, and southern Africa. Some surface charging hazards over Mexico, the Caribbean, and the Central Pacific. Here is the GOES electron flux. And both satellites there showing warning levels. Higher than expected levels of electron flux. Again, we are expecting some additional activity here in terms of coronal hole high-speed streams. We're expecting a density wave coming soon to a Lagrange point 1 near you, actually 1,000,000 miles from you. There is the forecast model. I would reiterate that we are expecting this to come down a bit lower than these green boxes, which are the forecast. We are expecting these to be down here once the latest coronal hole wind stream strikes. There's the 1-year chart to put the electron flux in context. The greater than 2 mega electron volt electron fluence. Next we'll show the F layer of the ionosphere, located right here at about 300 kilometers of altitude. Refresh those. We've got lots of low frequency anomalies at the moment. This is the ionogram showing frequency in megahertz. We've got some massive snow forecasts coming also, by the way, as we are running a little bit late here. Here is the ionosphere anomalygram, and you can see lots of red on the map there. Those are low-frequency anomalies. That's anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. So lots of stuff going on in terms of space weather. It's an exciting time to be viewing it in the huge amount of detail that we've got. There's the latest image, 10:30 Universal Time ionogram, 10:30 Universal Time anomalygram. Next, we'll show the total electron content forecast over North America. It's going to show you the electrons in between your GPS satellite and your GPS handset. That's about 12,500 miles distance, and those free electrons create signal refraction. Here is the total electron content. Here is the standard deviation. We are seeing some anomalies here. And there's the anomalygram. Some significant electron anomalies there. And let's continue on. It's the latest intensitygram. We'll press refresh. There's the latest magnetogram. Check out these new sunspots. They are beefy. Yowzers. So far only showing up as alpha class. And if either one is likely to be beta gamma class, it's this group down here, as it has produced flares. That roughly C5 class flare is an indication that there are probably some South Pole oriented umbrae trailing that. So a big uptick here in various different things. We are excited to bring it to you, as always. And before we get to meteorology, how about one more series of images from SDO? This is 2 species of ionized iron, as well as 304 angstroms, which is ionized helium. That's yesterday plus today. Oh my God. Dear God. By the way, the sun's not going to kill you, and neither is the galaxy, and neither are planets. Just in case you were wondering. And it's time to move to meteorology. Humans might kill you, but the sun's not going to kill you. All right, so check it out. We got some very cold temperatures over the western portion of the U.S. That is our temperature imagery from nullschool.net. Folks, stop the presses, okay? Greenland is going to melt, okay? It's a whopping negative 36.6 degrees Fahrenheit in that portion of the possession of Denmark. Negative 36.6 degrees It's going to cause a positive feedback mechanism for cooling, which is going to cause Europe to freeze. Pardon my sarcasm. Here is the eastern world, and we're going to move to wind. There is how she blows. The surface winds of the eastern world. There are the jet streams of the eastern world. Here are the jet streams of the western world. Look at the huge kink here, blowing cold air all the way down to Mexico. Yowzers. That is a big bend in the jet stream. Huge equatorial bend right here. Right at the Galapagos. Here are the surface winds of the western world. Powerful low pressure here in between Newfoundland and Iceland. Surface winds of the central world looking like this. Jet streams of the central world looking like this. And let's continue on to our 3.9 nanometer infrared radiation interactive weather satellite there. It's the GOES satellite showing clouds and fog over the western world. And you can see the day-night terminator there showing up on the right. That is what's going on. It's too dark to use the visible satellite. And let's move on. This is your weather.gov map, and we've got some wind advisories here, some winter weather warnings, huge amount of snow coming. We'll show you the forecast next. Freeze warnings there in places like New Mexico and Arizona. So check out the snow forecast. Some massive snow coming, especially to Wyoming, Idaho, and Washington. Look at some of those snow totals. Over 2 feet of snow forecasted for some large portions of those states. Yowzers. Heavy snows blanketing the northwestern portion of the country. That's a 72-hour GFS positive snow depth change forecast in inches. And let's take a look at the same model for pressure and precipitation. This is how things are expected to play out in the coming days. Again, expecting some heavy storms there in places like eastern Oklahoma, most of Arkansas, portions of Mississippi, Alabama, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, etc. You see the map. That's the 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. And let's continue on here. Here is the snow forecast based on the European model. Let's see what happens by 3 days. 3 days from now. European model expecting over 4 feet of snow in portions of Washington. 52.5 inches on the European forecast model. Let's take a look at lightning. There have been some significant lightning storms here across the U.S., stretching all the way from Texas to the Great Lakes. And how about a real-time lightning map to see if we've got any terrestrial strikes? And indeed, we do have a large band of lightning there. There are some thunderbolts rolling in. Some thunder rolling in there near Beatrice and Tecumseh. Some concentrated lightning activity indeed there in Nebraska. Next time you hear thunder, check it out. lightningmaps.org. It's highly recommended. And let's move to the final sections of the video here, the U.S. Doppler radar map. Heavy precipitation there in especially Washington. It is of the mixed variety. There's a lower 48. Here is the shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog for this portion of the planet, which is, by the way, croissant-shaped. And here is the water vapor map. Huge amount of Pacific moisture making its way to the Pacific Northwest. Here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar showing vertical motion of water droplets in the air column. The shortwave radiation map showing infrared radiation from the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite. And here is the water vapor map. That's about where we'll have to close things out. Thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. From the Smash News Network, please post a name of news and may that solar wind be at your back.